Welcome to Soup Reviews every episode of Gielinor Games Season 4. As the producer, caster, host, and editor of the show, you'll get my perspective of everything from the season from my viewpoint in these videos. Today's video is all about the planning phase for Season 4, so everything that went into the planning of the season before we actually started filming. You'll see the Episode 1 review out soon, but I just felt like this video needed to be made separately before the Episode 1 review, so buckle up. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. We are so close to hitting 1 million subscribers, and of course, anything you want to know or comment about, I read through every single comment in the comment section below, so feel free to leave anything you have to say down below. For the planning phase for this season, when I was thinking of the format and twists, I was toying with the idea of having only 18 people on the season as opposed to the 20 that we had on Seasons 2 and 3. In Season 2, 20 people made sense, since the season was a duo season, and with 2 people getting eliminated every week, it was essentially a double elimination every week, and we could comfortably fit an entire season into 11 episodes, counting the redemption episode. In Season 3, however, it was a free agent season, a solo season, so while we had team challenges throughout, the eliminations were mainly solo. However, I still needed to have a finished season in about 11 episodes again, and with most eliminations being solo, that meant that I had to have at least 3 or 4 double eliminations throughout. I also decided to have the final be 6 people. I did this for 2 reasons. 1, it allowed me to end the season in 11 episodes, and 2, it meant that there was a better chance for people's favorite players to make it to the end. This in turn means that more people are more likely going to watch every episode until the end. GG is mainly a RuneScape competition, but it's also a business at this point, and if the videos get more views with more players being in, then I need to cater around that a little bit. However, there were some criticisms. Not everyone was a fan of double eliminations in general. Some people didn't like the fact that there were teams in double eliminations, so 2 versus 2 when the season at the end of the day was a solo season, and some people didn't like that 6 people made it to the final. So for Season 4, I made changes. First of all, we only had 18 people this time instead of 20. Now I just want to say that I sent out 25 invitations to be on the season. Some were sent out after someone declined, so I didn't plan to have 25 people on. I was just kind of getting a sense of who would be interested. Now I personally am not going to tell you guys who declined. I think that's up to that person to let you know if that's something they decided to decline. Again, it can sometimes be down to scheduling. Some people just don't think that they really would be good on the show. Some people just think it's not really their scene, which is totally fair. I think that's a decision for them to make if they want to reveal that or not. We ended up getting 20 yeses, 20 accepted invitations to be on Season 4. However, we also ended up having a few scheduling issues in the final week before filming, and I made the decision to cut it down to 18 players. To be honest, I was okay with this and kind of preferred it. It meant that I would have to do fewer double eliminations throughout the season since there was already 2 fewer players than usual. It also meant that there would be more screen time for the 18 people who were on, and it meant that I had to edit 2 fewer perspectives, which is surprisingly easier than having to edit 20 perspectives. I see so many comments saying I should invite 30, 40 people to be on, but man, that would take so much time. Not only is that a scheduling nightmare, but a recording one as well. Imagine I have a challenge with 30 people and they have to do something for 30 minutes. That's 900 minutes of challenge footage from everyone. 15 hours. 15 hours of footage that I would then have to condense into a around 30-minute challenge portion of the episode. And that's not including the confessionals and B-roll that are a part of that 30 minutes as well. A massive cast is exciting, and don't get me wrong, I wish I could do it. I absolutely would. But logistically, it's just a very difficult task to pull off. It also means that there's just less screen time in general for everyone on the season. If 30 people are on an episode, it could happen that some people just wouldn't have any confessionals or screen time at all. I see 18 to 22 people as the sweet spot. In Season 4, we had 18. This meant 2 fewer double eliminations, which is something that people complain about in Season 3, so we can check that off as an improvement for Season 4. I also decided that for the double eliminations in the season, it would have to be purely solo. No more team eliminations. Everyone would have to rely on themselves when it comes to a banning. Again, something people complained about, so we improve on it for Season 4. Now, keep in mind that I'm saying the word improved, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's 100% better. There probably are a lot of people who really like double eliminations. There are people who enjoy the team bannings. It's just something that I wanted to test in this season to gauge reactions to see if the viewers prefer it. Finally, I decided that I would reduce the amount of people who made it to the final to 5. Again, only possible because we had 18 players this season. I also decided to do 12 episodes this time instead of 11, since I also saw some people saying that the end of last season felt rushed, so I increased it by 1 episode this time around. 18 players, 12 episodes. I actually created this scenario Google Doc page when the cast was finalized and wrote down exactly what type of challenge was going to happen each week. So solo, duo, small team, or big team, and then just kind of filled in the blanks with names. So before the season even started filming, I knew exactly what challenges were going to happen each week and whether it was going to be a double elimination or not. I had some pretty good picks, not gonna lie. I correctly predicted Settled and Framed making it to the final. I even correctly predicted Roydy picking Zoe Pancakes for the banning in episode 7. But yeah, this scenario was created a couple days before we started filming the season, so I already knew exactly what team sizes were going to happen for every episode, and I already knew that the final was going to have 5 people. That wasn't something that I just kind of randomly decided during the season at some point. So 18 players in a solo season. But what could I change about season 4 from season 3, even though they're sharing the same free agent format? One thing I knew I was going to do at the end of season 3 was introduce the Tribunal for season 4. I wanted there to be more winners every week. I wanted more people to be rewarded for performing well during a challenge, and I wanted players on the season to feel like they had a chance to be a winner every week. Having there be more than one winning spot up for grabs for a solo or duo challenge means people are going to try harder to win, and viewers like seeing their favorite players try hard and win, so it's a win-win. Now, as usual, winning a challenge gives you immunity. That will most likely always be the case, and it gives you a say in who goes into the banning that week. Now, while collectively the Tribunal all need to decide on one person to send in, they also have to cast an individual vote that's publicly announced to everyone. Whichever player receives the majority of the votes goes into the banning. My thought process with this is that the Tribunal needing to announce their vote publicly and the reason behind it would lead to some clashes later on in the season. Oh, you voted for me a couple of weeks ago? I'm voting for you now. That leads to the most important thing in a show like Gielinor Games, or any show in general for that matter. You need storylines. You need things to happen outside the challenges themselves that viewers can, in a sense, attach themselves to. Whether that's through alliances, personal beef, rivalries, drama from throughout the season. It's what makes a reality show a reality show. I'll get more into these storylines in the episode 1 review, since that's where casting really comes into play, so you can look forward to that soon. So there we have what happens if you win during the week. You get a spot in the Tribunal that gives you immunity, and you get a vote to cast on someone to send into the banning that you have to announce in front of everyone. Now, I saw a bunch of questions on what would happen if the Tribunal couldn't come to a decision. That means that the 3 people, for example, in the Tribunal all want to vote on someone different. Keep in mind that throughout the season, they would always ask me what would happen if they couldn't come to a decision, and I would always say, trust me, you don't want to find out. Those are the exact words I used every time, and I really think by just saying that, it scared everyone to never want to make it happen. However, if it did, here's what would have gone down. Everything would have switched. The 3 Tribunal members would now be the only 3 who were up for elimination. The rest of the group could then vote on one player in the Tribunal to send into the elimination. The Tribunal member who was nominated would then have had to choose between the other 2 Tribunal members to go against in that week's banning. That's how things would have gone down, and as crazy and as cool as that sounds, I never expected it to happen. The Tribunal members taking a risk like that is honestly too risky for all of them, and I think that the only situation where it might happen is if all 3 Tribunal members decide to do it for the content. So I could see a world where maybe Bodhi, Eevescape, and Solo Mission do it, but even then I doubt it. So the Tribunal decides on one person to send in. That person comes up next to me, and we have one of the 2 spots filled. Now usually, everyone would then individually and anonymously vote on who to send in against them. However, in arguably the biggest twist we've ever had on Gielinor Games, this season you get to choose who you go against. This was also something that I've always wanted to do, and I thought this season was the season to do it. It completely shifts the dynamic of the game. On one hand, we do lose some of the social game, but on the other hand, we instead get the shock value. You just never know what's going on through someone's head when they get chosen to go into a banning, and I knew that would lead to some absolutely insane matchups throughout the season, and I've got to say, it didn't disappoint. It's a simple twist that makes the season unique compared to the others, keeps GG feeling fresh, and will undoubtedly lead to some crazy moments, and like I mentioned earlier, storylines. Another reason for this choice is one that nobody really knows and talks about, and that's that it cuts down our filming time by quite a bit. Each filming session in season 3 took around 3 hours, whereas in season 4, each session took around 2 hours and 15 minutes. A big part of this was because I no longer needed to have a 25-minute section dedicated to getting everyone's votes. It's my goal to keep the filming sessions as quick and streamlined as possible. The last thing I want to do is keep people around for 3 to 4 hours when everyone has a content creation schedule and a life of their own that they need to tend to. It's while I'll never do things like 2-hour challenges or or 1-hour bannings. Sessions need to be completed in ideally 2-hour windows. Keeping people around any longer not only makes me feel bad, but also prevents them from doing things they need to do in their own lives. Keep in mind that everyone is in a different time zone with different things going on, so just being able to secure a 2-hour window once every week or 2 weeks is already a struggle. So while I'm not rushing to get the sessions done too quickly, I'm trying to find that sweet spot of around 2 hours to announce the challenge, answer any questions, film the challenge, film the tribunal and voting discussions, announce the banning, answer questions about the banning, film the banning, and record the outro segment. All of that needs to be done in around 2 to 2.5 hours. The fact that we were able to cut down the filming sessions by around 45 minutes compared to season 3 was something I was really happy with, and I don't think it affected the quality of things at all. On top of that, we also reduced a lot of the challenges to around 30 minutes instead of 1 hour. It again meant less filming time and just less work in the editing room, which in turn leads to me getting the season out faster to you guys. Okay, so this season we have the tribunal, we have the twist of the person who gets nominated gets to choose who they want to go against, and finally we have the Amulet of Choice. Now, fun fact about the Amulet, I didn't think of this until a week before we filmed the first episode. I had planned for the person who won the banning to have full immunity again going into the next week. But as we got closer to the start, I kind of just thought to myself that having back-to-back seasons with full immunity was just kind of a bit lame. I don't know, I really feel like shaking things up every season is what helps the show feel fresh every time it comes out, and I kind of realized that a week before we started. I needed to change something about what happens if you win a banning, and that is where the Amulet of Choice comes in. You win a banning, and you can choose between 3 options. Receive 200 million GP for yourself, sabotage another player before next week's challenge, or partial immunity, where the tribunal can still vote for you to go in, but you cannot be chosen by the person voted into the banning to go against them. The Amulet of Choice was a completely new twist, unlike anything we've ever done before, so I was really happy with just the concept of it in general. But to be honest, balancing the choices was pretty hard. I knew there would be a sabotage option as one of the choices. That's just a spicy option to have and would definitely lead to some dramatic moments, but I didn't want the sabotages to be so powerful that the person who gets sabotaged has 0 chance of winning. On the other hand, if I make it too weak, the sabotage option would feel kind of useless, which would in turn be disappointing. So finding a balance was actually pretty hard. We have the safe option of 200 million GP. This choice was for people who weren't looking to make any enemies, and instead were just looking for a nice payout. I've seen a lot of comments saying that 200 mil is a drop in the bucket for these players and really means nothing to them, which to be honest, for some people might be the case, but for most of them, 200 million GP is a lot of money and a very desirable choice. Not every player on the season walks in with a 10 billion GP bank. In fact, I think Torvesta and Skillspecs came in with debt. Only a few players on the season have a maxed out gear tab, right? That 200 mil is still a lot of money. But again, same case like with the sabotage. I didn't want the GP option to be too much, but I didn't want it to be too little. I don't know if 200 mil was the right number, but I think it ended up being okay. The final choice was partial immunity. This one was the trickiest to figure out. How do I bring back immunity, but not make it as overpowered as last time? Well, we make it partial. You're immune from one part of the voting process. You can't be chosen by someone to go against them. However, the tribunal can still vote you in. I thought this was a good balance for the third choice. Again, I'll leave my final thoughts on everything for the final review episode. This video is kind of just for you guys to understand my thought process and mindset when creating the season. So, just like that, we have a Gielinor Games season. We bring back the very popular free agents format from season 3, but this time we introduce the tribunal, getting to choose who you go against in the banning, and the Amulet of Choice. The reason I love the free agents format so much is because it's kind of like the best of both worlds. It lets me do solo, duo, small team, and big team challenges all at once. That solo and team dynamic is something that I think most viewers really enjoy. In season 3, I was the one creating all the teams each week every time there was a team challenge, but this time I decided that whoever won the previous week's banning would get to decide teams. That way, any controversy behind the creation of the teams wouldn't be on me, but rather on the player who got to create them. I thought this was a better way to go about team creation. The less of an impact I can have on the result of a challenge, the better. So, with the new format and twist decided, we have ourselves a season. Now, I knew that with this format, challenge performance would take the forefront as opposed to the social game. But I thought that after the heavy social game that season 3 had, we would try out a season where your performance mattered a lot more. I knew that not everyone would be happy. Deep down, everyone has their preferred format. Some people like the social game, some people like the performance. Some people like alliances, some people hate alliances. I really think it's impossible to create a format that every single person is going to like, but my goal when creating a season is just that even if you're not a fan of the twists or of the format, you'll still be willing to give the season a shot and watch it. I've got a couple of questions that I got from you guys on the comments of the last video that I'll answer now, as they're kind of fitting for this video. There's a bunch of other questions I got that I'll answer throughout all of these episode reviews I have planned, and it just makes more sense for me to answer those questions in those videos. First question I got was, Soup, why were there so many fake scenes in the trailer for Season 4? Fantastic question, and it's something I've been wanting to talk about for a while. So in the trailer of the season, there was a bunch of footage of players doing things that they never did during the season. For example, Z Cookies and West Ham were running in the swamp for the Red Click Challenge. Skill Specs was in the TOA Challenge. Eevescape is doing Barrows. That never happened. There's a bunch of scenes that just never happen in the actual show. And honestly, the answer to this is pretty simple. Spoilers. One of the things that I absolutely hate about so many trailers these days is that they spoil so much. You can pause on a frame and easily tell who's in the shot, doing what, and a lot of times that gives away what happens during the season. So my solution to that is to show legitimate challenge and elimination B-roll. For example, I just have people who weren't actually a part of it for the trailer. That way you're kind of getting half of the truth. That being said, some of the shots were legit B-roll as well that we used during the season, but those shots were ones where they're usually not going to give away anything. Editing the trailer in that way means that everything remains exciting and hype, and you guys don't know what footage is real or not real, and that to me is the perfect trailer. Luckily, RuneScape footage is really easy to recreate, so this wasn't too big of an issue for the trailer. Like I mentioned earlier, I think it only benefits everyone by having the trailer be this mix of real footage and recreated footage, since it keeps everyone questioning and guessing what's actually going to happen. Another question I got was, how do you decide what confessionals to use? Great question. If you didn't know, confessionals are the little interview segments you hear and see during the episodes. Whenever the player in the confessional booth pops up, so these scenes right here, and they're talking to you guys, that's a confessional. Whenever we finish filming an episode, over the course of the next 3 to 5 days or so, I hop into a call with every single person who was on that episode, and I ask them a bunch of questions. Almost everyone would get the same starting question. How are you feeling coming into this week? Has anything changed behind the scenes with alliances and the people you're talking to? Is there anything else you want to talk about before we get into the challenge, etc.? Then for the rest of the call, I just ask them about any and everything that I think is worth putting into a confessional segment. After the interview segment was over, I would then send over the call to Allie. She would then transcribe the call and write everything nice and neatly into this Google Docs page. And as you can see, there are a lot of questions and answers. Here is the episode 1 confessional Google Doc. 36 pages of questions and answers, all split up nicely into the intro, the episode, the challenge, the tribunal, the banning, and the outro. So every time I was editing, I could come to this page and look at all the potential confessionals I could use during the episode. I then created a timeline on Adobe Premiere, which is the program I use to edit, and I put all the calls into this timeline from every player. Here's the episode 1 confessionals timeline, and as you can see, it's a long one. There are over 6 hours of questions and answers in this timeline alone. So after all this was set up, it's pretty much all I needed. So when I was editing the intro to episode 1, I could come into the intro section on the Google Doc and look through what everyone's confessionals were, and then I would just pick the ones I thought fit best in a certain moment. One of the sad things about looking at all these answers is that the majority of them are never actually used during the episode. Sometimes someone else just had a better confessional talking about the same moment, sometimes the confessional was a blooper, other times the answer was just cut from the episode for time purposes. The unfortunate thing is that not all confessional answers are created equally. Some are better than others, and those better ones are the ones that I usually use. There must be 300 potential confessionals here, but I only use about 100 to 120 of them in the first episode. So only about 30% of the answers are actually used. It's one of the hardest parts of the editing process because not only do I have to get into a call and record these confessionals, but then I also have to make a decision on whether or not that confessional is good enough or fits into the episode. I'll get more into how the confessionals were actually edited in the editing episode that I have coming out, but there you go. That's how the confessionals are taken care of in the show. Okay, so I think this is a good place to end this review. I cannot wait to get into the episode reviews. I have so much to say and show you guys. It's gonna be awesome. Thank you all again for just being here and willing to watch me talk about this stuff because I love it, and to see other people love it as well is just amazing. Like 26,000 people already subscribing here is just insane. If you would like to see these episodes before anyone else, make sure to subscribe to my Patreon. For just a couple of bucks a month, you can support my content, get access to a bunch of behind the scenes Gielinor Games footage, and you can hear me read your name out loud in these videos. My Dragon Tier Legends 666, YK5, Alderon, Alec, Butcher Q, Caroline, Charlie, Empathy PVM Clan, Flamo, Jason, Jesper, Josh, Katie, Kitten Robert, Lacey, Lance, Matthew, Mookow, Mr. Monotone, Nico, Nikus, Skype Call Gamers, Rainman NP, The Owl 909, Vika, and William. To my Rune Tier Kings and Queens like Brandon, Prune, Steven, and Zyrelia. My Adamant Tier lovers like Homer, KempQ, Miguel, and Andrew. You guys are absolute legends. Thank you all so much for the support. I'll see all of you in the next episode, which will hopefully be be very soon. For now, enjoy this awkward outro as I wait for you to click on the video that's on your screen right now.